Welcome to another Extra Sports feature, and today I've got the Zimbabwe Rugby Union president, that's Mr. Jani, and we're going to be talking about rugby. I'm sure you enjoyed the interview that I had with Sean D'Souza, and we're going to be hearing more, especially from the man himself who's sitting at the top of rugby. Aaron, great to have you on the show, and we'll be looking forward to discussing quite a number of things.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity.
Most definitely. So, whether you did know it or not, he played rugby in his days, so he's not administrating something he doesn't know about. You were part of the old Miltonian squad that also had the likes of the current coach for the Sables, Brendan Dawson. You won the Lion Lager Rugby Championship, I believe it was back then, and a speedy winger back in his day. Don't you sometimes feel like some of the wingers these days who always want to cut back inside and not go for the corner box? Don't they irk you at times?
Well, also you're quite right. Rugby has evolved. When we played, it was the corner flag, but these days, you've got so many options, and it's very exciting to see the development, the new developments.
All right. So just to pull you a little bit way back into your high school days, you're an old Miltonian yourself, and Milton has been known as one of the rugby powerhouses, particularly as public schools down in Matabeleland, and we saw how rugby went down, but now is pretty much on the up, particularly due to some of your own interventions, as well as other old boys as well that are coming together and reviving the sport. How difficult maybe would you say it was back then to make it into the first team of Milton High School and to ultimately represent the school?
Okay. Yeah, those were very exciting times. There was nothing but rugby. So if you looked at the schools, your Falcon, your Plumtree, Milton, it was all rugby. So if you wanted accolades, if you wanted recognition in the school, it had to be rugby. So it was a no-brainer that from the beginning, when you get into school, everybody would like to get into rugby. I mean, I'll give you examples. Rugby players, first team rugby players were considered even at the same level as prefects. So they had so many privileges, and you would have the whole school doing war cry and practicing war cry at break time, and first team players and prefects would be exempt. So it was a privilege that that you could see early on. When we went into the school, even in the dining hall, there was special food for the for the first team rugby. There was special transport. I mean, during those days, we had these fancy buses. Can't remember what the name was, but they were Zebra, denoted, and those we went into the train when you're juniors. But the first team would travel in these luxury buses, and so it was exciting. So it was a no-brainer that one would end up playing rugby. So I came from a small school called Banks Junior, and they didn't have rugby there. I played hockey and all the other sports there. And then when I got into Milton, being a big rugby school, the first term was athletics. So I excelled at athletics, and I got the Victoria Durham Cup. And one of the sports directors came to me and said, "Look, I really like the way you run, and I think you've got a future in rugby. So next term, I want you to turn out for rugby." And so I did. And when I started playing, all I was told, I knew nothing about rugby, and all I was told, once you get the ball, go and put it in the corner. And I went into, we had a lot of teams. We had 4 teams, 13 A's to D, and I was put in the first team in the under 13 A's, and I never looked back from that time. So as one of the things that I'm really proud of, I've never played for a B team. From the word go. It's been so I went into the A's and that was the training. So I went through the system, at all the tournaments, and I started playing first team in Form 3, and Form 4 I had gotten my 4 colours, and then that's when I got scholarship offers because of the rugby. I had options to go to CDC and Falcon College. I ended up taking CBC, and the reason was very simple. They had a tour to the UK and Ireland, and I'd never been on a plane, so for me it was a no-brainer. So I just I took up the CBC scholarship. And then continued playing rugby at CBC. So that was really my school career in terms of rugby.
An interesting journey, and I think it becomes even more challenging when we're going to be talking about how the public school system right now, most of the public schools are struggling to try and push on with rugby and some of the plans that you have in place. But fast track, you've gotten into club rugby, you've played that, and then you come to the point of retiring. At what point did you say, okay, I think I've done what I can, and I think it's now time for me to retire and move on? Was it more of a career choice decision with some of the things that you're doing now, or was it just, I think the time is up now?
Well, look, I think it was a combination. I think I retired in 1998. Your body kind of tells you that you are slowing down, and also I had a young family, and those pressures also start coming through, that you really got to focus on making sure they're comfortable, and those were the combination of decisions that made me retire.
All right, so interesting time. So we move on from retirement, and now we're into the administration side of things, and we know that you've literally risen through the ranks. At one point you were chairman for the under 20 side, and then you have now risen to where you are now. At what point did you feel that the aspect of becoming the president of Zimbabwe Rugby Union was now beckoning, and it was now time to move into that position?
Well, what actually happened before I got involved with the under 20s, when I was still based in Bulawayo, I was elected as vice president South for the union, and then after that, I had a real big passion for youngsters, and I thought I could make a difference there. So I then volunteered to get involved in the under 20 setup, and this was around 20. In fact, I started off with I got involved with PE first as a sponsor, and from there I just enjoyed it a great deal, dealing with youngsters. And so I then volunteered with the union to run the under 20 setup, and I came in 2006, and there was also an exciting program that was starting with World Rugby. They just introduced the under 20 Junior World Trophy, and so we were gunning for that as a country, as a new program that had been put in place. So I was made chairman, and then I assembled a team. So it was very exciting. I think back during those days, the achievements we did, it was really amazing. We managed to represent Zimbabwe at least 4 times in the Junior World Trophy. And I can also proudly confirm that we used to even pay allowances for schoolboys. I think at our best, we were giving them as much as $500 US, in an outing. So those were exciting times, and we had good sponsors on board, and there was a lot of energy in terms of executing, and which probably explains why we were reasonably successful with the under-20s. So that was really an exciting time for me. And then from there, that's when I thought, look, perhaps I've established the structures. It's better to leave it to others and move on to the higher level. That's when I started to run for the president of the Zimbabwe Rugby.
Yeah, and well, now you ran in your first term, and ultimately you are now in your second term as it stands, and I know that there's still a lot more work and a lot more ground that has to be covered. You spoke pretty much so about the issue of at the best stage there was the ability to pay out allowances, and this is for under 20 level, which was an amazing thing actually at the time. And we all know the economic state of Zimbabwe. It's still a little bit difficult for many sponsors to actually come in and do that, but successfully so. You've done for the Sables, and I mean, you've got a bucket load of sponsors, for lack of a better term, at the present moment, whether coming in cash or in kind. There is also a general feeling that maybe we need to extend that to the likes of coaches. What is your own assessment of that? Because many of the coaches seem to be in a voluntary position, and many of them tend to invest quite a lot of their resources to try and make things work. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, look, I think first of all, I don't always want to harp on about history, but when we came in as a new administration, we had a lot of issues to deal with. So basically, rugby was non-existent at the time when we got in. So what we've done is that we have managed to resolve all the legacy issues, in particular the debt issues, and we've managed to now focus on the growth trajectory. So what it means now is we have now recapitalized in terms of assets. So we've now got assets. We don't have to go and hire toilets. We don't have to go and hire tents. We don't have to hire chairs, tables. So we've recapitalized the union. So that was the first step in moving forward. The other step was also in the human resources side, which is an ongoing process. Putting in new coaches, and we will continue to assess and revalue and make tweaks here and there until we get to where we believe we've got the right people in the right positions. So in terms of growth, we want to get to a situation where our flagship, the Sables, we currently have a coach that's he's got a vehicle, and we try and ensure that he gets allowances where possible. And this whole trend is going to cascade into all the other coaches. As the union president, I'd like to see every national coach with a vehicle, a union vehicle, and also a reasonable allowance, on a monthly basis. But we can't build all this in 1 year. I think, with the little time we've been there, we've shown that this is now a possibility. We are now gaining the confidence of the corporate world, as seen by the number of corporates that are coming through to assist us. And the next phase will be to look at, the player and the technical team welfare, and I'm very confident that we will get there. Slow but sure, but I'm very sure we will get there.
All right, and you did mention the aspect of the under 20, Junior World Trophy. We've been looking at the World Cup, which has generally eluded us from 1991. We've been trying to get there prior to your administration, and of course in your current administration we know that we are trying to push for the 2023 Rugby World Cup. And then we've also got the women's side of rugby. Now, just looking at the women's side of rugby, and statistically you would know that because you're now sitting as part of that executive committee that is working in Rugby Africa for women's rugby. We've seen the uptake of women's rugby go to another level, even in terms of TV rights on a global scale. Now we're seeing that is also beginning to rise. What are the general plans to try and get women's rugby to the next level? Because there is a discussion as well that is happening in media circles, and I'm sure you've even heard it as well, that maybe the easiest route for rugby to make it to the World Cup might be women. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, that's look. You are talking to the converted. I have a great passion for the ladies' game, which is why I also sit on the Rugby Africa board for women. I'm actually the only man that sits on that board, and that is because of the passion that I have for the girl child. So, in as far as the union is concerned, there's a number of programs that we've embarked on. Which are geared towards elevating and developing the women's game. So, in as far as the structures are concerned, there will be an introduction of the under 20 league. This is in line with World Rugby's structures. So they are introducing the under 20s. And so Rugby Africa is also introducing the under 20s, and Zimbabwe Rugby Union will also introduce the under 20s. We've previously had the age grade rugby, which is under 18. So we are going to elevate that so that they've got a home to go to when they leave school, so that translates to an under 20 league. So we're going to harness that talent that we already have. Because the schools fortunately do churn out good numbers in terms of female players. So the only thing now is to create a structure for them so that they are actually involved in an under 20 league, and from there we will be able to choose a national under 20 side for women that will also represent us within Rugby Africa. And as far as the broader picture is concerned, we now have a committee. We continue to spruce it up and introduce more individuals, and we are also looking for any other volunteers who feel they have a passion for the women's game. We can use more numbers, more headcount in that area. And what we have done is we have selected selected a number of about 30 girls who are going to be in high performance, and they are currently doing off-season training in preparation for when they start playing. They are doing boxing, they are doing gym, they're doing all sorts of things, and we are very hopeful that this is going to pay dividends for us in terms of improving our rankings, because we aim to be in the top 4 within Africa for the sevens and for the women's game. So that new structure that we have, the High Performance Center, is going to pay dividends, we believe.
All right, so you speak particularly of the high performance side, and not so far back there was the establishment of the Rugby Academy. Maybe a little bit of an update on that one, and it being based in Bulawayo. What has happened to that, and will we see more rugby academies being established across the country? considering that we've got 10 provinces. We would want to tap into as many parts of the country as well to tap into rugby talent.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because of the COVID issues, most of the programs have died down. So same with the academy structure, that had also died down. But as we, unfortunately or fortunately, we always use, Harare as the model, and then we roll out into the other provinces. And so what we are doing is we are going to embark on the Get Back into Rugby program, which we are starting off in Harare. We want to roll it out in the other provinces once the concept is proven, and once COVID allows us to continue with that program. I must also mention that you remember that on the Super 6 side, we've traditionally just done men. But going forward, it's going to comprise of Super 6 for ladies as well. So these are all developments that are geared towards making sure that we can compete internationally as women.
All right, there is something that I then want to jump in. You spoke about the Super 6 for women being established. There is a general policy now that is going on in quite a number of sports across the world, and even here in Zimbabwe, we know with, rather in Africa, we know with the Confederation of African Football, they've now said that if a club intends to play in the CAF Champions League, they must have a women's side that is there with them, and obviously they must have youth structures to follow with that. Is this a direction that you might be taking as well with some of the more established rugby clubs that have been consistent throughout the years? We know the likes of Old Miltonians is now coming back to the fore. We do have Harare Sports Club, Old Hararians, Old Georgians, and all these others, even Mutare Sports Club as well. Is that a direction that you think you might take to try and prop up the women's game?
Yes, there was EXCO made a decision, and what the decision was that for teams to qualify to be in the top 6, they had to have a women's side. So that is definitely an issue that has already been resolved on. The other issues that were also decided on was that there is a gap that we've realized that exists between administrators and the technical staff, women and men. So to bridge that gap, we now require that each technical bench in a club or for the main side must have a woman sitting on that bench. And then on the issue of the women's teams, we want at least 2 women running the women's team. You can have a man if you want, or you can have 3 women, it's fine, but we want at least 2 women running the side. So we really are trying to make sure that bridge, that divide, narrows between men and women, and that we also get, those who are retiring, finding a home for themselves in terms of administration, coaching, and so on. And then, in addition, what we've also done is we've made sure that on all our training and education, we have a certain portion of seats that are reserved for women. So as we go, I'm sure the numbers are going to increase in order for us to be able to cater for the numbers we're expecting from the women's side.
Well, interesting that so many things are happening. We would love for you to comment on this discussion as well, and we'll relay all of the feedback to Aaron so that he can also just put the information out there, or even just let you know where you can get more of the information on what Zimbabwe Rugby Union is doing. But as we're rounding off this interview though, Aaron giving us this broad picture of what is happening within rugby, some of the concerns, and I think you also share within these concerns, is the fact that most of the competitive and exciting rugby is mainly happening amongst private schools. And we've seen quite a number of schools that had the potential to even leapfrog some of the private schools, especially looking back in the day. And you might remember the likes of Lord Malvern, a very big rugby school, Ellis Robbins, Craneborn, Vinona High School, all these. And we now know, obviously, Vinona High School is very good in women's rugby or in the ladies' rugby side, but in terms of their gents side, they have lagged behind. What kind of plan or structures are you trying to put in place so that there can be that consistency, especially in public schools, to play the sport outside of the Dairy Board Schools Rugby Festival? Because this is maybe just only 3 matches, and many of those teams then go into the term without actually playing a game.
Yes, it's something that we've been discussing, and what we've noticed is that the major difference is the structures that the private schools have compared to our public schools, and also the level of training and education that the different structures have. So number one, we've gone out in making the education and training free for level 1 courses. So this is in an attempt to particularly upgrade, the officers in the public schools. And then what we've also done is we've also noticed that most of the private schools have got a director of rugby, and the difference is that the public school can't afford one. So we are looking, so many models have been discussed within Exco. Some discussions were centered around what if we employ maybe 2 directors per 3 schools, or 2 directors per 2 schools. So it's something, 1 director per 2 schools. It's something that is being discussed. We realize there is a gap, and we are open to ideas. But 2 things need to be fixed. It's the training and education, and it's also the staffing at the higher level to get high caliber individuals who can actually drive the rugby in those schools. So we realize there is a gap, and we are open to ideas. But at the moment, what we are leaning towards is perhaps saying, as the resources allow and we partner with more corporates, is to plant level 3 directors in those key public schools.
Well, we definitely would love to see that development happening within our rugby and within the Zimbabwe, because we believe we've got the talent, we've seen the talent, and hopefully all of that talent will come together. We know that the Dairy Board Schools Rugby Festival at the moment, because of the whole COVID-19 pandemic, it's difficult to see that happening and schools rugby coming back to the fore, but all it is, will be continuously supporting the Sables as they endeavor to qualify for the 2023 World Cup. We know that we are waiting for next year's qualification process, where our first match will be against Cote d'Ivoire, and we are wishing you the very best in that. But thank you so much for your time, Aaron, and we'll be looking forward to coming and having more of these discussions as well, to hear updates on what is going on and all of the breaking stories that will be coming through from rugby.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, so this was the Extra Sports feature with the Zimbabwe Rugby Union President, Aaron Jani, and he gave us a broad picture of things that are happening, things that are set to come. Make sure you comment, you like, you subscribe, you share this content. It will be on our YouTube channel, which is where you should be watching it from right now. That is Sports Xtra ZW. You can also catch up with all of our sporting content on our Facebook and Instagram handle, that is at Sports Xtra Zim. And remember, the extra is without an E. But up until next time, with another Extra Sports feature, cheerio.